Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education University, and I'm your host, Tim Bogatz. You know, I am sitting here at AOEU headquarters all by myself recording this after a long day, but an amazing day at our Winter 2019 Art Ed Now conference. It was another great conference. I'm really happy with how everything went. There were some awesome highlights. We had some really cool presentations, some amazing new presenters, and a great keynote from Paul Topolos, just kind of taking us behind the scenes at Pixar, talking about all of the work he's done as an animator on all of these amazing movies. And, you know, it's always a great feeling for me to, be able to share those types of interviews, those types of presentations with art teachers everywhere. And, because of that, it's always a great feeling to get through a conference. But at the same time, it's kind of a strange feeling because, I've been working on this conference, been putting together this conference for 6 months. And then all of a sudden it's done in a day. But, I think it was successful. We've had a lot of positive feedback throughout the day, and I feel really good about what we were able to put together. But we're not going to spend a lot of time dwelling on the conference because we've already started working on the summer one, full steam ahead on the next one. But as we ask our students to do all the time, I like to reflect on what went well, what needs some improvement, and, just kind of what ways we can make the conference better. So I'm going to talk to Lindsey Moss here. I'm going to call her up, and we're just going to chat a little bit about how the day went, spend some time reflecting, and just kind of see, bounce some thoughts off of each other and see maybe what we can do to improve for next time as well. So let me give her a call, and we will get her on soon. All right, and Lindsey Moss here to join me to recap the conference. Lindsey, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Hey, well, thanks. I feel like we did this over the summer. You were part of the recap, and again, you ran the chat for us very well, I might add. And, I think it's good to kind of rehash things as we get done with the conference. So I guess the biggest question, the first question is, what were your overall thoughts on the conference? Like, did it live up to the hype for you, or did you get everything that you needed from it?
Absolutely. I felt like it was such a good mix of new presenters that were really talented and then old favorites offering new perspectives. It was the presenters were fabulous. And I felt like the topics were really good this time around too. There's so much going on in classrooms with social emotional learning right now. It's just become such an integral part of the current classroom dynamic. And I felt like it was a common thread through a lot of the sessions. And then I know people have been asking for art therapy, and finally we had Jesse Armstrong with a session just on that. So yeah, and I couldn't get over the swag box either. I was lucky enough to register in time and get a swag box this time around, and that thing was full. And there were so many creative, cool things, even the cocoa in the coffee mug this time around.
Right? Like, that was so popular. Like, everybody loves their hot chocolate. So that was awesome.
No, but hot drink.
Yes, but just even like you said, the amount of stuff in the swag box was incredible. Like, I feel like when they're packing those, it was like a puzzle putting together, because I just opened mine up and just stuff spilled out everywhere. It was so packed.
Supply Tetris, absolutely.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. But no, there is a lot of great stuff in there. And let me ask you this too. Do your kids at home, do they raid your swag box before you can go through it?
Sometimes they try. This time I kind of opened it when they weren't home to prevent that, so I could at least go through it once as a teacher before they start ripping everything open and getting excited. They were particularly drawn to that lesson plan and bookmark from Art to Remember that had the rainbows on it and everything. Yes. That was the first thing my third grader picked up. She's like, "Are there colored pencils in here?" She was hugely excited.
Yeah, that was awesome. And I think Amanda O'Shaughnessy, who did that presentation, did an awesome job, just by taking a fundraiser and making it interesting. Because a lot of times, people tend to stay away from those because everything turns out the same. You have, every class is doing a different project even, but you still have things that look so similar. But she has a totally new take on it with, turning it into coloring book pages and giving you ideas on how to make it individualized. And so, yeah, I thought not only were the rainbows awesome, that was a really, really cool way to kind of go about the fundraiser. So that's
a smart strategy for more choice. I like that.
Yeah, for sure. But, you mentioned the presenters, and I was super excited about the lineup. Like, just being in charge of the conference, putting everything together. I love seeing it come together, and I really like the lineup. But I wanted to ask you, we had a few returning presenters who are all awesome. Rachel Albert, Don Massey, Lena Rodriguez, Debbie West, Juanita Harmon. Like, who did you really like out of there? And it's okay to pick favorites. Like, they won't mind. But who did you like out of there, and why?
Oh man, it's hard to pick a favorite. I always love what Debbie and Juanita have to say, but I feel like this time around, what Rachel Albert was speaking to just really resonated with me. My district went 1-to-1 with our fourth graders. I guess it was last year now. And, a lot of the classroom teachers are dabbling with Google Classroom, and I hear them talking in the lounge all the time about, how it's been really effective for them. But I had the hardest time wrapping my head around how you would do that with hundreds of kids. And I know kind of the basics of how you set the classroom up and stuff, but I just thought that when Rachel took that deeper dive, like when she was showing the demo video, I was, first of all, I was cracking up with her hilarious example, that footage of like all the kids just freaking out in the classroom. I thought,
yes,
I can relate to this. But then, she made it so approachable that you don't have to have a video for every lesson, just the ones that are really instruction heavy. And I loved her idea about artist statements. And then this idea that you could give extra assignments to your early finishers, like that's the best differentiation plan I've heard in a long time. So I feel like after hearing that, I kind of feel more empowered to kind of really give it a try in my school. And my principal will love that too. So yeah, I think Rachel's was my favorite from our returning friends.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I feel like Rachel does such an amazing job each time. She's done like the stop motion animation before, just like packing so much information into a presentation, but still making it, like you said, approachable. And, it gives you all of these amazing takeaways. So I feel like we need to just keep asking her back to do amazing things. So that's cool.
She's awesome. Yeah.
Okay. And then the other thing that kind of made me nervous, again, just, putting this lineup together, 3/4 of the people I think were brand new, had never presented before. And that makes me nervous because you never know exactly what you're going to get. But, I felt like we came through with some really good stuff. So out of the new faces, like, was there anybody that really stood out to you? Anybody who really shined?
I felt like there were a lot of cool new perspectives, but my absolute favorite by a stretch was Sarah Gechter.
Yes.
She had me at the hello on her graffiti wall. First of all, I love that she actually took to the streets to present. That was so cool. And then I feel like I've seen graffiti presentations before, but I was really surprised at her content. I guess I had never thought about sticker tagging or this idea of these wheat paste posters before. I was thinking of graffiti in a really narrow definition. And so when she broadened it to be these other projects, man, I feel like I could really engage my 5th and 6th graders with that. And then I also loved, anytime you bring up graffiti, people are concerned about the legality and the intention. And I love how she just comes right at it with her kids. It's just part of the discussion. And
yes.
As just a different opportunity for my kids to talk about social issues, which I feel like is becoming more and more important to them. So I loved hers.
Yeah, I've been super impressed with her. I actually ran into her in Seattle at NAEA last year, and that's where, I first found out about her, saw what she was doing. I saw her presentation, like, whoa, she is special. And like, she came on the podcast and did an amazing job there. I'm like, let's put a conference presentation together. And yeah, like you said, I've never had anybody record like all over the city. So that was pretty cool. And, just seeing like graffiti from incredibly famous street artists, seeing pieces from them was really cool. And so I thought that was a good effect. And the other one that I really liked was Mallory Tolcher. She did the community connections and painting the basketball courts. And like, we always think about community art, but her sort of guidelines as far as, here's step 1 to get you started. Here's step 2. And just taking you piece by piece through how you can create those connections and how you can create those artworks, I think is really impressive. So yeah, that whole hour about reaching out to your community was just awesome. But then I wanted to also ask you about our keynote, Paul Topolos. Like I personally, I love seeing all the behind the scenes looks at the Pixar stuff and just hearing about some of his working methods, the movies he's worked on. So I guess a 2-part question. What did you think personally? And then secondly, as you're running the chat, what was kind of the general consensus there?
Well, personally, I could listen to Paul talk all day.
Yes.
He's like this just really mellow demeanor, and then at the same time is just showing you this work that is so unbelievably powerful. It was just really cool. And I that was the general sense that I got from the chat too. I feel like he's such an interesting artist to pick because he connects so directly with our kids, having done so much animation and, video game work. And in the chat, it seemed like that teachers really appreciated that perspective because it's something that their students are interested in potentially for a career. And of course, everybody wants to talk about what their favorite Pixar production is. Do you have a favorite?
Do I have a favorite?
Yeah.
I have a couple, but I think Inside Out might be my favorite. Like Paul talked a lot about storytelling, and the aspect of that. And, I don't know that the animation for Inside Out is quite as exciting as some of the other movies, but the storytelling and the concept of that is just incredible. And it might be because my daughter's right about the same age as the main character and going through a lot of those things right now. But I think that's my favorite. But what about you?
That's a hard pick. It's between Ratatouille and WALL-E. I just really love WALL-E a lot. I feel like it's almost 2 separate movies, and it was just really cool. I guess I had never stopped to really think about the animated process for WALL-E, and I didn't realize that some of those trash heaps were still paintings, digital paintings. And I feel like he just said so many powerful things chalked into 10 minutes there. And I didn't, it's neat when you hear about somebody who came from a teaching background. Didn't he mention his mom and his grandmother had been teachers?
Yes, and a couple of his cousins are professors, so he had a really good appreciation for education, and he touched on that a lot in his presentation, which, like you said, I think was really powerful.
My biggest takeaway from I want to make a sign for my classroom with his quote. He said, what was it? It was something like, art is a language we all know how to read, but don't necessarily know how to write. Yes. And I thought, man, there's no better reason for a kid to be in the art room. I need to make a giant poster or sign that says that for my door. But I just loved Paul. He was great.
Yes, I agree. And, he was the nicest guy ever. I talked about this a little bit in his podcast when he was on a couple weeks ago. But he was in San Francisco, invited me and the whole video team to his house to do the shoot. He saved parking for us. He made breakfast for everybody. And he's just I don't know, the nicest guy ever, which was awesome. And, you mentioned Ratatouille, and he was so proud of that movie because he just loves to cook, and his bookshelves are just filled with all of these crazy cookbooks on the theory of pastries and all sorts of great stuff. And so I feel
that was a passion project then.
Yeah. So you could tell he was most proud of his work on Ratatouille.
Okay, so Tim, then was the breakfast pretty good?
It was amazing. So yeah, we just, I got there first before the video team, and Paul's just in there cooking sausage, and like he had all these pastries for us and like gourmet bacon, and it was amazing. And then he's got like 4 different coffee machines. He's like, do you guys need a cappuccino? Do you want a latte? I can do
4 different
whatever.
coffee machines. This is my kind of breakfast.
Yeah, so it was pretty amazing. Like that's nothing that a keynote has ever done, and probably will never do for us ever again. But it was amazing. So, okay, but we probably need to move on. Nobody wants to hear about breakfast for too long on the podcast. So, I was just kind of thinking, like, we're an hour removed from the conference, and already I'm starting to think about the next one, because that's just kind of how we roll. But what do you think we need to see more of next time around? Like, you mentioned Jesse Armstrong because people have been asking about art therapy forever. We finally have a presentation there. People have been talking about getting a Pixar animator as the keynote. We're finally able to put that together. Like, do you think there's anything that's still out there that we're missing and really need to cover, or anything that you think we need to talk about more?
Well, I don't know. I feel like the conference balance is always really good. But I mean, we can talk about art stuff for infinity, right?
That's true. Yes.
I don't know. I feel like the summer conference for me is so different from the winter conference. The winter conference is like this totally necessary recharge, in the middle of the year when you're kind of feeling exhausted and your gas tank is low. But then the summer conference is like the opposite. You are getting all these crazy ideas that you want to try out in your classroom for the fall. And so I think like I, especially for the summer conference, love ideas that are really kind of on the edge, or something, really new and different when it comes to technique. But I think, though, honestly, for the last several conferences, my very favorite part has been these artist keynotes, like whether it was Jen Stark or Alexa Mead. I just love hearing these perspectives about how these people got to where they were and how art education kind of affected them. So I'm excited to find out who we're going to have next time.
Yeah, so you're putting the pressure on me to find an awesome keynote, is what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, Tim.
Okay, sounds good. No, I think you make a good point, though. Like, the winter conference is all about just kind of hanging on. It's like we're barely getting through this, but this kind of recharges your batteries, and it really gives you that push you need to get through the last couple months. But then the summer conference is just filled with optimism. Like, everybody's been off for a few weeks. Like, we're excited to get back at things. And, we are more open to those new approaches. Because, like, if somebody's got something really cutting edge in August, you're like, yes, this is going to be amazing. And if, you're to see that in February, like, oh, too much work. I can't do that.
Absolutely the truth. Yeah.
So, yeah, we like to think about that approach as we go through. And I said August, but I think we may actually move it to July this summer, because for I don't know what reason, a lot of school districts think they need to start on like July 31st or August 1st, which is crazy to me.
We're in August this year, Tim. I'm in August, early August start back. Yep.
Yeah, it's rough. And so anyway, we've had people having to miss the conference because their school district is starting so early. So I think we're going to try July, which hopefully will help people out. But before we wrap up, before we move on to that, like I said, we're immediately thinking about the summer conference, and we need to talk about your dramatic return as a presenter. So can you just kind of share with us what you're planning for summer presentation?
Well, sure. Yeah. So, I was saying about, my kind of philosophy about the summer conference, like I'm looking for something that's going to get me, excited and organized for the fall. And in my personal teaching practice, that has been sketchbooks. I feel like sketchbooks are everything for my kids. It's like a way to teach mindful planning, a way to emphasize process over product, a way to give them a comfortable testing ground where failure is kind of, something that's okay. But it is so hard to implement a system like that for 500 kids plus, with fidelity and on a budget. So I'm doing a session implementing sketchbooks with sanity. So I'm going to share the system that's working in my school, that's running semi-self-sufficiently, that is like really cheap and low cost, that includes some assessment strategies that get the kids involved in some formative assessment so that you are not wasting a ton of time, grading 500 plus sketchbooks. And then some sketchbook prompts that are working for even my kiddos who are super reluctant drawers. And I like doing the giant download. That's like,
yes,
yeah.
That's your calling card.
Yeah, I love that. So I like to go to a session and then have something in my hand I can print like the very next day and take to school. So that's what I'm going to try to do.
Yeah, that'll be really cool. And I feel like that follows up Debbie's presentation, what she talked about with assessments and visual journals. I think that'll be good. And like you said, like it's a lot of work to implement, ideas for 400 or 500 kids. So it's perfect for the summer, just like we talked about. So
yeah,
I think we'll be in good shape. So, but I think we've been talking too long, so we better go ahead and wrap it up. But Lindsey, thank you so much for all of your help with the conference. Thank you for running the chat, and thanks for coming to talk about it with me on the podcast. It's been good.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you to Lindsey. Also, a big thank you to everyone who participated in putting on the conference. Big thank you to the presenters, and thank you to everyone who attended. I love the community that is part of this conference. The chat during the conference, of course, it's amazing to talk to hundreds of other art teachers, but also the discussions that take place on social media, the sharing of all of the pictures, people attending with their colleagues or their pets or whatever. It's just great to see how everybody's taking this in. And, I love seeing the discussion on the Art Ed Now attendees Facebook page, and all of these things are going to keep going even after the conference is over. And so make sure you check out the AfterPass if there's anything you need to see again. And also go sign up for the summer conference. Hey, you can go to artednow.com, check out the presentations we've already released, including Lindsey's that she just talked about. And you can lock in your early bird price for the next conference. More importantly, if you sign up now, you are guaranteed a swag box. Okay. So that the conference is going to be great. You know that you want to sign up. So just go do it. Okay. We will hope to see you there, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that the summer conference is another amazing experience. Art Ed Radio is produced by the Art of Education University with audio engineering by Michael Crocker. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming to the conference. I hope it was a worthwhile and an exciting day of professional development for you. Shannon Laufer wants to come back on the show. I always love having her as a guest. So we'll see what we can do and hopefully get her on in the next couple of weeks. We'll talk to you soon.